Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about something fascinating. It's this idea that to understand our biggest health problems today, we actually need to look way, way back into our deep evolutionary past. You see, our bodies are running on an ancient operating system, but we're living in a brand new world, and that mismatch, well, it's causing some serious issues. So, let's get into it.
So, let me just ask you a question to kick things off. With all our technology, our smartphones, our ability to explore other planets, you'd think we must be at the absolute peak of human intelligence, right? That our brains have just been getting bigger and better? Well, not so fast. The fossil record tells a very, very different story.
Get this, our brains have actually been getting smaller. No, that's not a typo. For millions of years, our brains were on this incredible growth trajectory. It's what made us human. And then, around 40,000 years ago, that trend slammed into reverse. It started to shrink. And this wasn't just a little blip, it's been a consistent trend ever since.
Now, we're not talking about a tiny amount here. We're talking about a 10 to 15% drop in average brain volume. To put that in perspective, our brains hit a peak of about 1,500 milliliters. Today, it's more like 1,350. We've lost a chunk of brain matter, roughly the size of a tennis ball. So the really big question is, why? Why would that happen?
Okay, so to figure out why our brains shrank, we first have to understand why they got so huge in the first place, and the absolutely massive price our bodies had to pay for them.
This is just incredible. Your brain, it's only about 2% of your body weight, but look at that. It hogs a whopping 20, even 25% of your daily calories. It is an energy monster. This is what scientists call the expensive tissue hypothesis. Basically, our intelligence is biologically very, very expensive.
So how on earth did our ancestors fuel these massive, energy-hungry brains? Well, they couldn't do it by just munching on leaves and stems. They had to go for the most calorie-dense, nutrient-rich foods they could find, and that meant meat and animal fat. This high-quality fuel source is what allowed our brains to expand for millions of years.
All right, let's shift gears for a minute. Let's talk about heart disease. We always think of it as a totally modern problem, right? A disease caused by fast food and sitting on the couch. But what if I told you that this story is way, way older than that?
This quote here is from a doctor who was part of this amazing study. They took ancient mummies from different cultures and put them through modern CT scanners. And you know what they found? Hardened arteries, atherosclerosis. This tells us that, yeah, our bodies might just be wired or predisposed to this condition. But, and this is a huge but, just because we're predisposed doesn't mean it's our destiny. And this chart just drives that point home. Look at this. Ancient Egyptians, Puebloans who were farmers, even the Anangnan hunter-gatherers, they all had signs of it. But then, check out that bottom row. The modern Tsimane people in South America, they live a very active foraging lifestyle, and they have the healthiest arteries ever recorded. What does that tell you? Lifestyle is king. It can absolutely triumph over a bad genetic hand. So this really gets to the heart of it all. What are we supposed to be eating? What kind of diet are our bodies actually built for? To really get this whole mismatch idea, you have to see what our genes are expecting from us. And wow, when you put them side by side, it's just night and day. On the left, that's what we ate for pretty much all of human history. Real, whole foods. The stuff you find in nature. On the right, that's the modern world. Grains, dairy, tons of processed stuff our Paleolithic ancestors wouldn't even recognize as food. This right here, this is the evolutionary mismatch in a nutshell.
So what was the big turning point? What event completely changed the game and sent our biology and our diet in two totally different directions? Well, it was a revolution, all right? The agricultural revolution. And it created a kind of paradox.
Just look at this timeline. For millions of years, we were hunter-gatherers. That's the environment that shaped our DNA. Then, just 10,000 years ago, which is like the last second on the evolutionary clock, boom, we invented farming. Our whole world changed practically overnight. But our genes? They're still operating on Stone Age software. They haven't had time to catch up.
So back to the shrinking brain. Why did it happen? Well, a really fascinating theory is called self-domestication. Think about it. When we domesticate animals, like a dog versus a wolf, they tend to become more docile and their brains get smaller. The idea is that as we started living in bigger, more complex farming societies, being cooperative and friendly became a more successful survival strategy than being an aggressive genius. We started to outsource our brain power to the group.
And that's the great paradox. For our species, agriculture was a home run. Our population exploded across the planet. But for the individual, there was a steep price to pay. The skeletons of the first farmers show they were often shorter, had more diseases, more nutritional deficiencies, and, yeah, weaker bones and smaller brains than the hunter-gatherers who came before them. We traded individual health for the success of the crowd.
Okay, so what's the point of all this ancient history? We can't all go back to the Stone Age, right? Of course not. But we can absolutely learn some powerful lessons from our evolutionary past to dramatically improve our health in this crazy modern world. And hey, don't just take my word for it. The science is pretty clear. Look at this data from a big analysis of multiple studies. When people switch to a more Paleolithic-style diet, what happens? Blood pressure goes down, triglycerides go down, cholesterol improves. It's like our bodies are breathing a sigh of relief and saying, ah, yes, I recognize this. This is the good stuff. And it's the exact same story for our bones, which is so critical for healthy aging. The recipe for strong bones looks a lot like an ancestral lifestyle. You need those nutrient-dense whole foods, full of vitamins and minerals. And you have to move your body. Physical activity is the signal that tells your bones, hey, you need to stay strong and dense. It's non-negotiable.
So if we boil all of this down, what can you do right now? It's actually pretty simple. First, try to reduce the foods your body doesn't recognize. The processed stuff, the refined sugars, the things that came from a factory, not a farm. Second, focus on what your genes expect. Lots of vegetables, fruits, and good quality protein. And third, move. Our bodies were designed for near-constant, low-level activity, not for sitting in a chair for 8 hours a day.
So, I'll leave you with this one last thought to chew on. Our genes, our very biology, were forged in the Stone Age. We are all carrying that ancient blueprint inside of us as we navigate this modern world. The real question for all of us is your lifestyle working with your biology, or is it constantly fighting against it? Really makes you think, doesn't it? Thanks for tuning in.